Hello and welcome back to Economics versus the Environment. And today we're on part three of The Road Ahead. So here's a quote from Natural Capitalism. In a world where a billion workers cannot find a decent job or any employment at all, it bears stating the obvious. We cannot, by any means, monetarily, governmentally, or charitably, create a sense of value and dignity in people's lives when we are simultaneously creating a society that clearly has no need for them. Social wounds cannot be healed, and the environment can't be saved as long as people continue to believe that the best thing for business is to use more capital and fewer people. When people were poor and the population was small, such a strategy made sense. Today, with material conditions and population numbers changed, it doesn't. The true bottom line is this: a society that wastes its resources wastes its people, and vice versa. And both kinds of waste are expensive. The fundamental cause of underemployment is that labor has become too productive, mostly as a result of substituting machines and energy for human labor. The underlying basic idea of a change would be to reduce the tax burden on labor, in other words, income tax, so to reduce its market price relative to capital and resources, and thus encourage more employment of labor compared with capital, and especially fossil fuels and other resources. If there is any implication of neoclassical economics that seems beyond challenge, it is that shifting the relative price of factors, that's things like land and labor and capital, will eventually cause the economy to substitute the cheaper factor, labor, for the more expensive one, natural resources. For the same reason, environmentalists want to increase the tax burden on activities that damage the social or natural environment, so as to discourage such activities and reduce the resulting damage. This encourages many resource-saving activities like disassembling old products and remanufacturing and repairing products that currently look costlier than making new ones. This illusion is caused by keeping labor artificially expensive and natural resources artificially cheap. That's the end of the quote. Quite a long one. And here's another quote from an economist called Robert Ayres. I believe many of the problems of economic growth, growing inequity, unemployment, and environmental degradation in the Western world could be solved, in principle, by restructuring the tax system. Just as overproduction can exhaust topsoil, so overproductivity can exhaust a workforce. The assumption that greater productivity would lead to greater leisure and well being, while true for many decades, may no longer be valid. In the United States, those who are employed and presumably becoming more productive find they are working 100 to 200 hours more per year than people did 20 years ago. End of quote. Let's stop and think about these quotes for a moment. It's saying that not only does production need fewer people because of new efficiencies like AI and because machines are replacing people, but strangely, the jobs that remain are being given to fewer people, so that the people who have a job have to work longer than in the past. That seems to be crazy. If there's less need for people to work, why don't we spread the work around so that more people get to participate? But they work shorter working days and working weeks and with more holidays. The truth is that for administrative, technical, and legal reasons, it is substantially more expensive in most countries, and especially in rich countries, to employ two people for 40 hours per week each than to employ one person for 80 hours. Extra costs include bigger buildings for more workstations and therefore higher rents. Administrative reasons include the employer's need to create two payslips, not one, make 2 bank payments for wages, track the holiday and other entitlements for 2 people, and so on. Legal reasons include communications that are required by law covering employment contracts and advices about rights and expectations. Safety compliance and other legal compliance requires that all employees are given certain relevant information. Best practice is for the employer to be able to prove that they have complied with this if it is ever questioned. So many large businesses will create training videos that employees must watch, and their viewing is recorded. Then, for example, if there is a fire and people accuse the employer of not giving adequate fire training, it can show its records of when each individual watched the training video. An example of other legal obligations is the banking industry. Employers must, by law, train their workers to recognize the sign of money laundering. So they show them a 15-minute video about it and record that they've watched it. And the math is simple. If you employ one person for 80 hours, you have to show it once, and the employer loses 15 minutes of productive time. If you have to show 2 employees working 40 hours each, you have to show it twice, and you lose 30 minutes. Overtime is where workers and management agree that workers will work more than their normal number of hours per day or per week. And this supports the same structure of employing a small rather than a big number of people to work the total required number of hours. Technology changes also make the use of fewer people more workable. Mobile phones mean that workers are never out of touch. This includes traveling time. In the past, they could not be contacted then, and out of hours time. In the past, out of hours time was considered the worker's private time. Employers could only ask to use it on a very exceptional basis and only very infrequently. Today, taking work phone calls in the evening after normal hours is normal. Teachers, especially those in administrative roles, have to work many days during school holidays, although their employment contract doesn't say they should. So against this background, innovative approaches like job sharing struggle to survive. New ideas replacing old ones is not a process by which some professor makes a small step, adding a little to existing knowledge, and so the whole academic community moves forward to the new level. It's infrequent, more like a landscape change by an earthquake than by slow erosion of mountains. In economics, it also includes several parties. Firstly, the pure academic researchers at universities, then the financial world at every level, from the governor of the US Reserve Bank or the Bank of England to the retail financial advisor helping families get mortgages or good superannuation schemes. Business interests, who are the users of the finance provided by the financial world. The politicians' interpretation and popularization of the topic, and the financial press, who do a lot of interpreting of the academic side for their readers. Teachers at all levels who reinterpret the old views as they pass them on to the next generation. The resulting mindset is usually not very close to the pure academic position. It tends to get simplified. The subtleties that were present in the academic view and the reservations or exceptions become lost as it is interpreted for an audience that is a lot less qualified. It can be deliberately distorted for political or economic gain. And this often takes the form of selective use of parts of the academic idea. For example, Adam Smith's idea that if everyone followed what was good for them, the result would be what was good for the nation. This is often quoted by people who want to see very few laws and rules about what businesses can or can't do. They say rules are not needed because it will turn out well for the country, as Adam Smith said. They never mention that Adam Smith explained that this was because people and families would act responsibly because they would follow their conscience. It has since been shown that people will ignore their conscience if they can make money by doing so, which knocks a big hole in Adam Smith's argument. But as the conscience idea is never mentioned, most people don't see this hole. Another example is Lenin's use of Marx's idea about the dictatorship of the proletariat. Marx's idea was that the proletariat, workers, would decide things. They would not consult with other groups like landowners or business owners. And because they wouldn't consult, he called it a dictatorship. And it's not a major part of Marx's idea to be a normal dictatorship. But Lenin, who led the first successful communist revolution in Russia, wanted to be sure the Russian state under communism would be a dictatorship, with him as the dictator. So he took over Marx's idea about the dictatorship of the proletariat. He made it a major part of the Russian communist philosophy because he wanted to kill any idea that what the workers wanted should be decided by democracy. Both of these examples show the gap that there can be between the original view and the mindset. Apart from the differences of emphasis, the mindset is almost always simpler. The audience needs it that way. So Adam Smith's complicated arguments against government intervention become Ronald Reagan's slogan, "The business of government is to get out of business." And this is the end, my friend. See you next time.